Exercise 34, question number 3. This particular question investigates the relationship between measuring temperature in degrees Fahrenheit and degrees centigrade. F equals, so that's the temperature in Fahrenheit, 9/5 multiplied by the temperature in centigrade, C, plus 32. You might remember that 0 degrees centigrade is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's why we add the 32. If you look at this little aside before we move on to the question, if we look at this formula which we use to convert from centigrade to Fahrenheit, a good little trick, if you look at the 9/5, 9/5, well that's nearly 2, isn't it? So if we doubled it, and then because we've overestimated a bit, instead of adding 32 add 30, we get a rough estimate for what the temperature is in Fahrenheit. I've actually plotted the graphs on autograph. I've plotted in red here the equation y equals 2x. I'm doubling it and adding 30. So that's our estimate in red. And the actual one, y equals 9/5 or 1.5x plus 32, is in blue. And you can see that around about 10 degrees centigrade, it exactly matches. You can see at 0 degrees centigrade it doesn't quite match because the red line crosses at 30 and the blue one crosses at 32. But you can also see that the higher the temperature along the x-axis, the centigrade is along the x-axis, the more inaccurate our estimate is, the further the red line is away from the actual value, which is the blue line. But for normal temperatures, and round about 20 degrees centigrade is room temperature, so 20-ish, 25, 30, that's a reasonable estimate. So if you wanted to convert from centigrade to Fahrenheit, just double it and add 30, gives you a reasonable value. So anyway, back to the question. You've got to express 130 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius. So in other words, we've got to go the other way. So there's two ways to do this. As before, we can either solve the equation, which I'll do that on the left, or we can rearrange the formula, which I'll do on the right. So putting in the values, let's say, well, let's do another one. Let's say convert 95 degrees Fahrenheit into centigrade. So 95 equals 9/5 C plus 32. Well, if you look at the right hand side, the first thing to get rid of is the 32, so subtract 32 from both sides. So 63 equals 9/5 C. Now multiply both sides by 5. So 63 times 5, well 10 times 63 is 630. Half of 630 is 315. 9C. And then divide both sides by 9 and you get the temperature in centigrade. If we look at the right hand side, let's try rearranging the formula. Again, we follow similar steps. So I would subtract 32 from both sides, but this time I can't work out the answer. I just have to leave it as f minus 32 equals 9/5 C. Now we want to multiply both sides by 5 to get rid of the 5 on the right hand side. But this time that 5 must be outside a bracket because we've got to multiply everything on the left hand side by 5. So put the expression on the left hand side in a bracket, equals 9C. And then finally divide by 9. So 5/9 times the bracket equals C. And you can see actually looking at this that when we swap the 9/5 to the other side, we actually invert it. 9/5 becomes 5/9 here. So we now have a new formula to find the temperature in centigrade. C equals 5/9 brackets whatever the temperature is in Fahrenheit minus 32. So I could now plug my Fahrenheit temperature in here, which is 95 degrees centigrade, and work out what C is, and you should get the same answers you did on the left hand side. So just finish that off and then have a go at the original question.